All right, time for the office. So Monday. There's a TT. Someday it'll be back on the road. Yeah, so I had my on-call shift. Sort of like a short one, but overnight this weekend, which is a pretty rare thing for us. But I had mentioned in the previous video, I'm beat. So one thing that I have a bad habit of doing is when I'm in a situation I can tell I'm tired, I need to sleep. Like I said this morning, I'm gonna go into work a little bit later today because I'm not. My head hurts that I'm so tired, and then what would happen is I would say, okay, I'm not gonna go into work, and then I would not sleep. Then I would just go try to do something else. I have a bad habit of doing that kind of thing where it's like, oh, did that just free up more time for something? And not being honest with myself and how tired I am. So I made sure when I got home, I basically messaged my employee and said, hey, by the way, if you need some extra time, by all means. Sorry, really awkward turn there because there's a lane merging and someone was not understanding what's happening. And they still don't as I watch. But yeah, I messaged them to say, if you need some extra time, by all means, that's cool. But let's move our one-on-one to tomorrow morning. And then I actually went to sleep, and I slept for a while. It was around 8, I think, and I slept another 2 hours, and needed it because I woke up. I think I slept 8 to 9, and then woke up, and I was like, nope, still not it. So yeah, just gotta be honest with myself for that kind of stuff, and that's what I did today. So I think that was I'm proud of myself. But the problem ends up being in my head, I think about how much time is going past. If I have a week to get through a bunch of stuff, and then one of the days, okay, how much time do I have in the day to go be effective on different things? That as soon as it's oh, you need to catch up on sleep, I'm going, well, if I'm sleeping, I'm not doing, right? And I know I'm not saying this is good. I'm saying that's what kind of subconsciously happens in my head as I'm trying to prioritize things. But I think after having a weekend that felt like it was completely ineffective, that was a good indicator for me, it's not going to be effective today if you don't catch up on sleep. So yeah, so this weekend I'm gonna talk about some brand go stuff, but in particular this weekend I set out to go do a bunch of coursework and get YouTube videos filmed. And I didn't film any coursework or YouTube videos, but I did get through a bunch of the slides, which I'm happy about. And part of that was in addition to the slides I didn't create yet, this mental framework for how I want to approach the different sections. And that might not seem like such a big thing, but I think it's really helpful for me. So just as an example too, the slide decks that I did get put together, I feel so good about those now that I'm not going to say I can do the videos in one single take, but it's not going to take me, if the section's 10 minutes, I'm not going to be recording for 45 minutes to try and get it right. It will probably take me 15 minutes to record a 10-minute section because I feel confident enough. So that's good, at least. I'm not happy about it because I wanted to be far more productive, but like I said, I could not be. So catching up on some sleep, definitely needed. Just trying to be transparent about it, right? I try to get a lot of stuff done, but I can't be going at 110% all the time, and this is just a perfect example of it. And it was exhausting enough that even for me being stubborn about just trying to power through it, I can't do it. So that's good. We got a lot more. I want to switch over to some software development stuff, and I wanted to talk about some team dynamics and stuff too, because I think that's important. But we getting more feedback for Brand Ghost again. I think the newsletter launch with the 50,000 subscriber email list goes out tomorrow. which is super exciting. We were just trying to make sure that I've talked about onboarding and stuff a lot in these videos because it is so important. But we got our onboarding completely done, like the revamped version of it. It's funny that we didn't even launch V1 of it because it was broken. So it never activated for people, which is ironic. So we never even got people through V1. We're on V2 of the onboarding. We feel that it's really slick, and to help with that, because I talked about this before as well, that some of the concepts are going to be kind of new for people, right? So it's hard to have a seamless onboarding with new concepts if people don't understand what the benefit is yet. Like, we have to do a couple of things. We have to prove to them why it's going to be helpful, right? So they see the value prop immediately and they're like, oh, hell yeah, like this is the thing I need. So we need that, but we also need them to like configure a couple of things so that we can help demonstrate that to them. And it makes it kind of tricky to get right. I'm sure this won't be the last of our onboarding. I'm sure we will have many different iterations of it. So, oh man, what's going on here? Sorry, this truck is taking up a lot of space in one of the lanes. But we do have this new version. We're really happy with it. And we followed it up. I can't speak. We followed it up with, there we go. I can't remember what it's called. Joyride, I think. So Joyride, I think is the name of it, is a framework where you can have in your web interface, you can kind of do a tour. Joyride tour. And you can basically help teach users about what the different pieces of functionality are. So that's also new. So not only do we have this flow that's hopefully going to get people connected to things, have them set up with concepts. I'm gonna move over lanes here. But beyond that, we can kind of educate them a little bit. So we're trying to build in a little bit more education into the onboarding itself. Right? So like, here's why we need you to connect this. Here's what it's going to enable. Here's why that's valuable to you, blah, blah, blah. Get people introduced. But beyond that, like now that we've set things up, here's where you can find all of it. And we had this really, well, I at least had this really interesting experience over the weekend where someone had reached out on LinkedIn about like an AI tool. And I'm like, I don't like being pitched things on LinkedIn, but they're like, it's totally free. Like, set up your account and stuff. Come on, give me some space. Pop, pop, pop. And so totally free, we'll set up your account, like no strings attached, whatever. Even then, I'm kind of like, man, like don't bother me, I'm busy. But this happened to be something that seemed like I could use it. I still haven't used it over the weekend, but they did set me up with an account, which when I looked at what they did, I was like, very interesting. Like, I know from different social media integrations and stuff, I'm like, I know that's not automatic to do. Right? So I know that you can't get access to that unless you're doing things like web scraping, which maybe they are. But I asked the person, I said, hey, by the way, how did you do that? Right? Like, I'm curious. And they said, we did it manually, which is interesting, right? Because if you watch Y Combinator stuff or like other startup stuff, there's like I think it's Paul Graham from Y Combinator. I think it was him that said it, but like do things that don't scale. And that is 100% an example of do things that don't scale. You can't onboard every single customer like that, right? It would be ridiculous. You'd have to hire a team of people constantly trying to get people onboarded that way. But the way they did it was like, I didn't go to their page and sign up and then I had to wait. It was like they reached out and said, hey, we're going to do this for you. We'll let you know when it's ready. And then they did it, and they could do it at their leisure. So it was a personal touch. I don't think the goal was to be a personal touch. I think the goal is to make it seem automatic, which is great. But I actually know it was a personal touch because I know they can't do it any other way. Which is kind of funny. So there was that, which I was like, okay, that kind of resonates with some of the stuff we're doing. For example, some of the early people onboarding to our platform we're extending to them like, hey, if you don't know how to get all of your content imported, like, we'll figure out ways to build that, but let me do it for you. Like, point me at your posts, like, let me go set it all up, at least to start. So we've been offering that. But the other thing that was interesting about their onboarding is that it's not the same product as ours, but there are some similar concepts. And I talked about this in one of my vlogs of last week. I don't know, lose track of time, but this idea of like, when we get people through the onboarding, are they going to have something that they can use right away? Or is it just enough to kind of show them how to navigate? And I gave the example of like, if you're a C# developer in Visual Studio, you go make a new ASP.NET Core web API, and it makes you a sample weather application. And it's highly unlikely that every developer in the world is trying to build a weather application, right? But at least gives you some code where you can look at it and go, okay, I see how this works. Here are the pieces I want to keep. Here are the pieces I don't. And even these guys with their AI tool, they kind of set it up that way. It made something where I was like, I'm not going to use that. Like, it doesn't make sense for me to use it. But they set it up, and then I could edit it, I could delete it, I could understand how it would work. If I wanted to, I could go use it. So if I just wanted to try it, I could absolutely just go use their initial thing. So the barrier to getting started was so low because they onboarded all of my information. There was still a couple of other questions, like, you know, like high level, like tell us about the type of content you want to work with, your audience, blah, blah, blah. Just like, I'm sure it's to help seed some of the prompts for them, which is fine. But again, the barrier to get started was like, once I typed a couple of things and press next, I could literally just start their tool right there if I wanted to. And like I said, for me, the initial thing they set up, I wouldn't use it. But if I just wanted to try it and see and understand like what they got going on, that was perfect. So again, just a bit of a kind of like this reminder that like, I think we're on the right track with what we're trying to do, because that was an experience that actually felt very good for me with some other product. And, you know, I don't know them at all. There's no reason for me to like be like, oh, it's just my buddies or it's something I built, so I'm proud of it. It's just like a totally random thing, and that was a good experience. So if we could emulate something like that, I feel like that would be good for our customers as well. Okay, so onboarding stuff out of the way, because that was a really big task. You know, one of the engineers worked super hard on that, and I know that he's worked on this kind of stuff in the past, like about guiding people, because I've mentioned on this vlog before that when we've worked together previously, we've done a lot of work with trying to take really complicated things and make them so simple that like you could have zero experience doing it in the domain and still at least understand how to get through and be productive. Like, that's our goal. And this individual has a lot of experience doing that. So he worked really hard on this. I think it's great, and we have to wait to see the results as they come in with data, right? So when this email blast goes out tomorrow, we'll see. Like, we have no idea. Maybe no one even clicks on it from the email, which would suck, but that's okay. You know, these are all different learning opportunities. So onboarding out of the way, we also had more user feedback over the weekend, and it's good. Like, we have a couple people that are very vocal about feedback, and it's interesting because, like, I don't know for whoever's watching this, some people might like literally never be exposed to this kind of thing in their entire career. So especially if you're working at a really big company, you might be working on services, you might be working on, even if you're working on user-facing features, you might be so sheltered from like customer or user engagement that you never have these types of interactions. And the closest thing might be like feedback in a pull request or a code review, right? Where basically you have to understand, or at least assume, that your peers doing a pull request or code review, they want you to succeed. It's pretty rare honestly, even though sometimes it doesn't feel like it, it's pretty rare that people on a team are just malicious and want you to crash and burn. You might feel that way sometimes. You might have invented a lot of stuff in your head about it. It's a pretty rare thing. If you're watching this and you're like, no, I disagree, it happens everywhere, sorry, I just completely disagree with you. You're probably just in bad situations and happen to keep getting into them. Most people don't want other people to crash and burn. Okay, so if you're finding that's happening, maybe it's worth a conversation with your manager about navigating some of these scenarios. But if we can lean into that, we still know that on pull requests and code reviews, when you get feedback, sometimes that can be hard, where you're like, man, like I worked so hard on this and now these people are like, nah, we can't do it this way, like this isn't gonna work, or you just start to feel like all of your effort was for nothing. And you, like, maybe deep down you know it's not for nothing, but it kind of feels that way, right? It's a totally normal thing. It takes time to overcome this. Even if you're just working in new teams, like that might reset for you, where you're like, oh man, like I used to have this good thing going with my team, like I felt like I understood what everyone wanted, now this team's different. It's totally normal, right? So not to beat yourself up, but be aware of it, try to improve. But this same type of thing can happen if you are making software and you have a direct connection with end users and customers, right? So you'll have someone go use your thing and it's no longer the code. They're not criticizing your code. They can't see your code. They don't even know if it's you getting a request on the server and manually going to enter the data into a database or something, right? They have no idea. But their experience is really what you need to be listening to. So, like I was saying, we have a handful of users that are giving us like really good, like direct feedback, and we need it because it can be hard to hear. And I'm going to walk through a couple of examples, but it can be hard to hear. But at the same time, it's like, I think it's hard to hear because we're so proud of it. And it's the same thing if you haven't experienced this for your code reviews, at least maybe you have, where you're like, I worked hard on that code. And like to hear someone be like, no, it's not going to work, or we don't use this design pattern or whatever else, it sucks. You're like, man, like I'm proud of that and I worked hard on it. What's the deal here? So you get this same type of thing when someone's giving you really critical feedback, right? So they're talking about the usability of something and they're like, it's just broken, it's not working how I expect, I don't like it, it's not obvious. Whatever it is, right? What you need to be able to do is, I have to cough again, sorry. I feel like my throat was just like getting drier and drier, but you need to be in this position where, again, these people are early adopters. In some cases, we're like extending trials and stuff for them. So like we're doing them favors, and they're doing us a lot of favor just by giving us feedback, right? The 1 month of like fee that they're not paying is like, that doesn't compare to the feedback that they're giving us. The feedback is really what's going to matter. And I mentioned this before, right? It's not like getting our first paying customer is going to mean like finally we can buy groceries this week. Like none of us are in that position. We're very fortunate for that. So that's not what it's about. It's about proving the value of like this business opportunity. So when these people are giving us feedback, we need to remember they want us to succeed. If they didn't, they would totally screw off. They would say, like, why am I bothering with this bullcrap? I got other stuff to do. Like, not worth my time. Get out of here, right? So they're not doing that. If you keep this in mind, like, they're giving you the feedback because they want it to be better. Oh, this person. I just watched 3 people kind of, like, pull out really fast. That's maybe poor phrasing on my part. I watched 3 people pull around a car very fast. And it's because he's going quite slow in the fast lane. There you go. Good job, buddy. Not fazed by it, right? So, again, we get this critical feedback, and the first gut reaction is like, man, like, there's a list of 10 things here. You got 10 things that you hated about this? Like, come on. Like, but remember, like, it feels bad right away, and then you got to remember, like, he or she, in whatever case, like, they're telling me because they want it to be better. They want to use it. They want it to be good. They're telling you. So you have to, like, kind of reframe it for yourself, and that takes practice for sure, because I know if I wake up in the morning even, and I open Slack and I'm like, even in bed looking through Slack and I see like, hey, this doesn't work or I don't like this, my immediate thing is like, man, it's too early for this. It's too early. Like, I just woke up. I want to have a good day, and it's already not a good day. But it is a good day, and it's a good day because we're getting feedback and we're going to be able to improve the experiences. Now, the thing I wanted to talk about, and I'm already like close to work, so you can see I ramble a lot, but if it wasn't obvious, I think one of the takeaways I wanted to kind of talk about here was like this feeling of like, yeah, man, like that sucks. Like, it sucks to have that response, right? I don't know a good way to explain it, but I'm not proud of myself when I get frustrated when I hear feedback. Like, I don't like that being my first response. It still takes me a moment to go, hey, Nick, remember, like, imagine not having anyone use it and no one giving you feedback. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And then I have to talk myself into it, and then it feels good. But the next problem ends up being, okay, all the stuff we want to go build, we're not getting any closer. That's how it feels, okay? So we're not getting any closer because now we got to go fix all this stuff or improve all this other stuff. And it's like, is it really that important? And someday it might not be that important. We're not there yet, though. So if we're being honest with ourselves and looking at this feedback, it's all really important because it's all like, hey man, I can't even use this thing. So all of that work you did to try and make this thing like, you know, a feature that you can sell to people, it's unusable. So that is a good opportunity for us to improve. So I'm not proud of my initial response, and I've been, like at Microsoft, I don't deal with end users, but before Microsoft, it was like 8 years of getting not exactly like a direct line to customers, but pretty close. And it was frustrating, but at least we're getting the feedback. So what I wanted to say was that I was really proud of, and I don't think any of the team watches these videos, and I wouldn't expect them to, but I had this like kind of, it wasn't even a moment, it was like a period this morning where in my head I'm going like, okay, I'm feeling like I have to go fix all this stuff. I have to go make it right. And the team's already aware because they can see the same feedback coming in. And it's just like, I know I'm working with the right people when they were just like already on top of it. It was like, I felt like I'm going to have to go fix all this. It's going to be my responsibility. And when I started talking with the team about it, it was like, I've already fixed 2 of those 10 things. They're already fixed. And I'm talking about like, I'm reading these things in bed. I'm just getting up. We're in different time zones. I'm just getting up. They're already fixed by the time I get to my computer. Incredible. And already working on the next things, already able to explain why it's happening, already coming up with the plan. And it was just like this feeling of like, I don't have a good way to explain it, but like, I know I'm working with the right people because that balance of like everyone sharing the pride. Everyone is so proud of what we're putting together that they don't go and they're like, yeah, man, that does suck. Like, can't wait for Jimmy to have to go fix that. Like, not my problem. Or like, oh, I don't care what the user has to say. They all care about the feedback. And they all have enough like pride about what we're building that they're like, yeah, how do I get in and fix this? Right? And, you know, if that individual who did fix things this morning, if he was unavailable, because we've had this kind of thing come up, where someone's like, hey, look, I'm not going to be online until tonight, then people are chiming in being like, what do you need me to try and do in the meantime? Or is it something I can look at for you so you don't have to like worry when you come back from whatever in the evening? Like, maybe I can just do it. It might take me longer, but maybe I can just do it for you. Or at least get things started, right? So it was just like this, it's a bit of a roller coaster ride having to go through this kind of stuff, but again, I didn't have, I should add this in. I didn't like have doubts that I was working with the right people. It's not like this is the thing that like made me go, oh yes, like I'm so glad I made that decision for the first time. But it's more like just a reminder. Not that I need reminders, but it's a nice reminder to have that when you got the right people, like, you have this kind of thing happening. So, but yeah, it's funny. Like, it's not a surprise to me, but at the same time, that reminder is nice. Like, it's because it's a feel-good thing. Like, it's kind of like getting stuck on a problem and then being able to come up with the solution finally, and you're like, yes, I've overcome this. It's a similar type of feeling where you're like, man, like, this is going to be so challenging. There's a lot of stress on me for this. And then you're like, no, like, you're working with the right people, and it's like this sense of relief. Like, it's just cool. So I wanted to share that because, like I said, I think there's a lot of people that go through their software engineering careers and they don't have that. Maybe some people, like, this is the only thing they do is they're trying to build like startups and stuff like that, and that's been their whole experience. But for me, it's like I had a little bit of this. Sorry, my voice. Better? Yeah, for now. Early on in my professional career, when I was working at small companies, I had a sense of this. I also worked at companies in my internship where, like, I didn't feel this at all. No one's fault, just didn't feel it. And when I worked at Magnet Forensics, like when I started there, when I had graduated from university, like, I had this feeling basically instantly, which is really cool, to be like, oh, like, this isn't even my software. Like, I didn't build the first version of the thing, and, like, I feel proud of it. I'm working with people that feel proud of it. It's just really cool. But I don't think a lot of people get that kind of experience. I know even on my team right now, there's a handful of individuals, and I'm not saying the other ones don't do this, but there's some that stick out to me where I can almost feel like how much pride they have in some of the things that they've built, and that they sort of have subject matter expertise over, because if there's ever anything wrong at all, they go so far out of their way to try and make things right. Like, even if there's an incident related to a change they had, it doesn't matter the scope of the incident, right? But incident related to a change they had, and in an area that they, like, have responsibility over, even though there's on-call engineers 24/7, they're like, nope, like, I'll stay up super late, like, you know, it's like midnight to 2 in the morning. They're, like, working on fixes. They're flighting them out. Like, even though there's on-call engineers to help with that, they're like, no, this is my responsibility to go make right. They might own the code fix no matter what, because if it was their bug or something, but even to go say, like, I'm going to monitor this flight, and, like, it's something that they probably could hand off to the on-calls to say, hey, could you just check to make sure signals look okay, and if not, ping me. But they're like, nope, like, I'm on top of it. So it's I don't know, like, I want to say I don't necessarily expect that at that degree, but it's really cool to see people be, like, very passionate about the things they've built, to the point where it's, like, showing up in all of these different areas. So one of the things that I'm hoping, especially as early adopters, I want people to see, like, we literally are listening, and anything you got going on for feedback, we're going to try and address as quick as possible. And that's impossible to scale. Okay, and I want to say this pretty clearly. It's impossible to scale because if you imagine that you have, like, right now, if we have X number of users, if we 10x, 100x, 1000x, 10,000x that number of users, how can we possibly be trying to respond to all of the requests and all of the things, like, at the same velocity, right? If we turn into a company and we hire employees, like, it's like these types of things don't scale. But I want to make sure, as long as possible, for as far as this thing goes, that's something that people feel like when they aren't satisfied, that we're able to kind of turn things around and have people go, like, look, it's nothing's going to be perfect, but, like, I know that this team of people is going to do literally anything they can to make this a good experience. Like, that's That's what I want to have when I'm building software. So anyway, I'm at work. I'll do another one of these on the way back, but yeah, I hope that makes sense. I know it's not directly like, I'm not talking about code and architecture, but these are just things like in software engineering that I don't think a lot of people are talking about. And I realize it's kind of like at the intersection of like entrepreneurship and sort of just building software in general. That's why I'm trying to bridge some of these things together, because if you're like, hey man, like I'm just working for a company and like I don't care about the entrepreneurship kind of things, like it's not that you have to have your own business or your own project that you're working on to do this. I'm trying to relate it to your day job if this is not a thing you're doing, because I think that like I think it's a different perspective to have when you have different types of ownership and trying to think about, like, I know if there's stuff that I've worked on and I didn't feel like some sort of sense of ownership, I'm kind of like, why do I care? Like, give me a reason to care kind of thing. And it's kind of like, it's almost like the wrong, I shouldn't say wrong. It's not a great way to look at things. Like, someone give me a reason to care. Like, I don't know, man. Like, motivate yourself. Find a reason for you to care. If you totally nail this project, if you demonstrate that you are so passionate about building it, you really care for it, you're going to go through great lengths for it, don't you think that's going to look good for maybe promotion conversations, instead of being like, yeah, I built this thing and it broke half the time and I just kind of pawned it off on people? Like, I don't know. Some of these things seem relevant to me, but that's that. I'll see you guys after work. Take care.